Welcome to the Tattooed Truth Podcast with Anna Love, a space for embodied conversations for soul-led rebels. I'm your host, Anna Love, intuitive empowerment coach, subconscious healing guide, and no stranger to burning it all down to rise in truth. Here we dive deep into identity, healing, personal power, and what it really takes to lead a soul-aligned life. You'll hear unfiltered insights, real stories, and live coaching sessions with bold callers ready to break free and embody their next level. This is your invitation to reclaim your voice, rewire your patterns, and rise fully expressed. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Tattooed Truth Podcast. I am Anna Love. I am so excited to be here today talking to you about this episode. So I recently read a book that you all might have read before, and it's by this author named Nick Ortner, and it's called The Tapping Solution. And he has several different books. This one happened to be around pain relief. And so this episode is very close to my heart because years ago I struggled with pain relief, and I'd love to dive in right now to teach you a few things that Nick highlighted in his EFT tapping. This is emotional freedom technique, and how this aligns with what I do with identity work, with confidence, with overworking, all the things that I talk about, people pleasing. So I'm very excited to bring this to you today, and I'd love to just dive in. So let's get started. A lot of times we are doing things that do not serve us and our body. We're learning how to push through the pain, right? We're just keeping on to keep on. We are trying to just think positive about things. We are sometimes faking it to making it, right? Sometimes we're just stretching ourselves too thin. And we're trying to do things without understanding what's really going on, right? So you might hear people saying, like, oh, just change your habits. And you may be able to change a habit, but it's not going to stick because you don't know, where did the habit come from? What belief system is it attached to in the first place? I have a belief that says in order to change your habits, you need to know, where did the habit begin? When did you decide to create this new belief? And if we are having issues with our body, it is attached to that said belief. And through my upbringing, I was never taught these types of things. So when I would have body ailments, it would be immediately like, let's take you to the doctor. Let's give you a painkiller. Let's just like throw some medication at it. And what I've learned down the road, years and years and years and years and years of doing it the wrong way and the old way, is that, and Nick Ortner actually writes books on these things, and I am obsessed with his teachings on EFT tapping, that when we tap into the energy that is stored inside our body and we realize that a lot of the energy gets stuck, very much like acupuncture helps you release that energy, so does EFT tapping. And I'd love to kind of dive into different facets of this today. So, if you are very, very interested in this, I'd love to just tell you again the name of the book. There's several that he's written. This specific one that I'm talking about is The Tapping Solution for Pain Relief. And he speaks about the difference between internal drivers and external behaviors in chronic pain. So, like I said, this ties into my identity attachment work. If you are self-sabotaging in any way, if you feel burnt out in any way, this episode is for you. So, the outer behaviors that he speaks of, these are the things that we can see outside of us, right? When we are looking outward. So it's the way that we move, it's the things that we avoid, the things that we are immersed in, it's the habits that we believe need fixing, it's how we are triggered. The inner experience is when we are going inward with our intention of noticing what's going on inside of me. what do I believe about a certain scenario that's going on? What is the emotions that I'm feeling? What is the emotional memory that is stored inside my body, right? What does my nervous system feel like? How am I being right now? And this is my favorite. What meaning am I assigning to the way that my body is feeling, right? Any type of sensations that I'm feeling. So, and I'm going to get into a story or two about the way my body used to speak to me and how I would blatantly ignore the sensations that I was feeling inside my body, and then how it kept spiraling and spiraling until one day I literally couldn't move. So, what's important to understand about this episode is that most people, and myself, my old self included, my former self included, we're trying to change our outer behavior without ever addressing the inner environment that created it. Okay, so let me say that again. We are dealing with pains in our body. Maybe it's chronic pain. Maybe there's stresses that are going on outside of us. And we try to fix it. We try to deal with it. We try to make it, maybe neutralize it a little bit or make it go away and just say, like, if you ever find yourself saying things like, oh, I would be so much better if I could just XYZ. If my leg pain would just go away, I would be so much happier. Or if I didn't have this back pain, I could join that tennis team or play bowling or something like that. Or I can't sleep well because I can't get through a night of sleep because of my XYZ. Have you ever found yourself saying these things or feeling this sort of way? What's important about that is that when we say these things, we're giving too much power to external forces that we don't have any control over. We think that that's where the answer lies, but really the answers are always within ourselves. So, without us trying to change the outside world, all we need to do is go inward and start asking ourselves, what's actually going on here? What is beneath? I like to say beneath, and I want you to picture literally like if there is pain in your body, going underneath that pain, and there's an underlying story, there's an underlying message, there's an underlying reason that that pain is there. So here's where I'd like to tell you a little bit about what was going on for me. So years ago, I remember going through my divorce, and my knee would hurt, my hip would hurt, my ankle would hurt, my lower back would hurt. Then it would be the middle of my back. Then it would be my shoulders, back to the knee, back to the hip, back to the ankle. And so I believed at the time that this was a product of maybe I lifted too much weight when I was at the gym, or maybe it was the way that I was sitting. Maybe it's because I'm wearing flip-flops, right? These are all the things that I was being told when I was going to see different physicians. No, it's your shoes, it's the way you walk, it's because you do these activities. Why don't you stop doing these activities and see if the pain stops, right? And so, what I would do, because I was not going inside of myself, I wasn't reflecting on what was actually going on in my life, which was me feeling guilt, me feeling shame, me feeling anger still about lots of things that were going on in my life previous to the divorce, but also during the divorce, right? Wasn't worried or concerned about the fact that I was overwhelmed with all of what was going on emotionally in my life. I was just overriding that. I wasn't taking it into account. Okay. What I was doing instead was I was starting to adapt. I would adapt the way that I would sit on a chair where I would only like sit on a part of my body. I would adapt the way that I would walk. I would stop going to the gym. I stopped going to yoga. I stopped playing tennis. I did all the things that the physicians were telling me. Oh, you need to do this. I learned that I wasn't breathing properly. So I learned how to breathe from my diaphragm instead of my upper chest, which that's actually a valid, I will say that's actually a valid. My breathing was really a big part of this as well. But, after seeing the chiropractor, after getting cortisone shots, after getting plasma shots, after seeing two orthopedics, after seeing energy workers, after seeing medical masseuse. I feel like there's some more things in there that I did that I can't recollect right now, but it was so many things. And finally, what brought this to a head was I started seeing a personal trainer who wasn't trained in anything specific, but he my very first day of meeting with him, he was like, "What's going on with your posture? Why are you sitting like that in the chair?" And I was like, "Dude, I can't sit any other way. It's painful. I couldn't even like bend over to tie my shoes without having like piercing pain in my back." So he was like, "Yeah, I don't love that you're avoiding moving in certain ways." And this is what Nick Ortner's book actually talks about, is that when we don't realize that this pain is because of something internal and that we have the control and we have the access to go inside of us and start shifting things, what we do is we try to manipulate the things on the outside side of us. And so I was starting to manipulate the way I was walking, the way that I was like lifting things. I wouldn't lift weights anymore, like all of these things. So I told myself that it was danger, right? Like, don't do this or else it's going to be worse. And when you do that, you actually create more of a problem. There's a thing in his book that he talks about, like, if you actually did get hurt, and a lot of people will push back on what I'm saying right now. Family members of mine, when I try to talk about this, there's like, look, I have a legit problem. I actually hurt my shoulder doing this and doing that. Yes, I'm not saying that that didn't happen, but when something does occur in your body and then you create a story around it, then there's the muscle memory has, I'm just like pointing to my shoulder right now because maybe you've hurt your shoulder lifting weights. When that event happened, you created a story around it, and then that now is the story moving forward. You can't shift it. You can't change it because you're telling yourself that this is what's going to happen. Like, oh, I can never lift weights again because my shoulder needs a surgery now. And it actually compounds the problem because it's not even true. Like when you get down to it, you can actually go in and figure out, okay, is there fear around the fact that I can't lift weights? Okay, well, let's work on the fear. Let's do some tapping around that fear of getting hurt again or fear of the damage that I might do and make it worse, that kind of thing. Whatever you're telling yourself, whether it's fear of rejection, fear of being hurt, I'm just using fear in this example, but it could be a lot of different things that you're telling yourself. You actually start to make that true in your body. And again, it's a way that we're protecting ourselves. I talk about this in a lot of different episodes where the things that we do that I am here to help you undo, this is about the undoing, it's really just to protect yourself. That's what you're trying to do. So I'm not saying that you're wrong or bad for doing this. I'm saying, like, look, I was there before too. And this is why it's important that we talk about this because I have figured out that we are our own worst enemy. And a lot of times we need to get out of our own way in order to move forward. So looking at the pain, it's not always the problem. Okay. Sometimes it's just a boundary to where we're going. And when the pain is the nervous system saying something to you, it's saying slow down, it could be saying pay attention, it could be saying something here doesn't feel safe, right? And we need to look at that. Like, where are we getting these thoughts and these beliefs? And when we only focus on the outside, not the inside, when we focus on our productivity or our posture, we're missing the message. We're missing the underlying message, what's really going on. And here's the deal. This is what happened to me. Maybe you can relate. When you miss the message, your body then speaks louder. Okay, so if you've got a body part screaming at you, you need to be listening. You need to put down whatever it is you're doing and you need to go inward, maybe in a meditation, and figure out what is your body part actually saying to you, right? Because sometimes it starts out as a little whisper, then it becomes a voice, and then it becomes a scream. And what I would do is I would override all of that. And I would say, okay, I don't feel you. I don't even hear you. This is before I realized I could talk to my pain and talk to my body parts. I would ignore it. And then I thought that it was like a pretty big pain level. And I would just say, yeah, it doesn't hurt that bad. But then when I really, really got down to it, it became a current everyday pain. I had to admit that it was like a level 6. I'm referring to my back pain back then. So when you start bringing in understanding that this is somatics, meaning your body is soma, and your nervous system is inside of you and it needs to be regulated differently than what you're doing, then you can start bringing in different techniques, things that I do with my clients: EFT tapping, internal family systems, and somatic work. And then the body can actually feel supported. It can start to feel safe in a way that it hasn't any time before that. So here's what's really important. When we are, I'm going to touch on the ways that we are being with our lives. Sometimes we're a people pleaser. Sometimes we are an overachiever. Sometimes we have emotional shutdown. Sometimes we are the perfectionist. Whenever we are behaving in these ways, they aren't personality flaws. They are our outer behaviors that are being created by that inner way that we're being, that inner survival way that we're being to keep us safe. So your system may have learned something like, if I'm useful, that means that I'm safe. And I know that was me. Like, I got to keep going. My body has to keep going and keep moving forward in order for me to be valuable. Then that created this false sense of safety, right? Or you might be telling yourself, if I don't need much, if I just stay small, if I don't ask for things, then that means that I won't be abandoned. Okay, these are these internal deals, struggles that we're dealing with, that we're coping with. Another one is, if I stay small and nobody sees me and nobody hears me, nobody can attack me, nobody can hurt me, right? And this is why identity work matters, because when the inside shifts, then like, so maybe like the body will release the tension, right? Or the voice gets clearer. When you're making those internal shifts, the outside world will shift as well. So when confidence stops being performance, when your boundaries form naturally, not out of protection, and you don't try to be different. This isn't about going out there and trying to be different. It's just about being different. There's a difference. And I love to say that the word try just means like you're probably failing. Okay, so just take the word try out of there. A lot of people will say, well, I'm trying this and I'm trying that. Just take the word try out. Just go be it, be the thing, be confident, right? Be big, be all the things that you feel like you have been telling yourself, or other people have been telling you that that's not available for you. Go out and try that on and see if your pain shifts, see if your pain subsides in any way. So I'd love for you to ask yourself, what beliefs are attached to the sensations that you may be feeling inside your body? What behavior is being driven by trying to change, right? So it's not about anything is wrong with you. It's just about reframing. It's not about fixing you. It's about reframing. And everything starts with our words, right? So after our beliefs come our thoughts, and after our thoughts come our words, and after our words come our feelings, and after our feelings come our actions, and after our actions come our reality. So if your reality was anything like mine, where I was dealing with pain and I was struggling to get through the day and the night just to wake up and do it all over again, and I was avoiding certain ways of moving or different ways of behaving, then there's something there to explore. Finding out, how are you trying to protect, right? What does my body believe would happen if I stopped doing this? What does safety even feel like inside of me? And I'm happy to report that when I started working with that personal trainer, he said to me, "Okay, Anna, we're going to do these exercises." And I immediately said, "No, we're not. We can't do that. I can't move that way." And he said, "I'm going to ask you to trust me and just do what I'm asking you to do." And it was very scary for me. Like I almost felt the pain before I made the movement that he was going to ask me to do. Have you ever done that where you're like imagining the pain that's going to ensue if you were to move in such a way? But lo and behold, I swear to you, after working with him for just 2 times, my pain level went down from a 6 to a 2. And couldn't believe it. I was doing these movements of which I've been avoiding for like a year. And after working with him for, I think it was 4 months, I was like squatting big amounts of weight, something that I never thought that I was going to be doing again. And I said to him, like, you literally healed my body. And he said, no, you did. He said, you were afraid, and the fear was the problem. And that's what's really important to know. And that's why I love the book that I had referenced earlier, The Tapping Solution for Chronic Pain. This is one of the underlying learnings in there is, and I wish I had read this book back then. I didn't even know about EFT tapping back then when I was working with this trainer and going through this period of my life. This is before I understood EFT tapping, but this book, I mean, I've read it recently because I'm like, this is in full alignment with what I believe now. So ask me any questions that you'd like to. Come find me on Instagram. I am .theannalove, or check out his book. And if this episode spoke to you or you feel like you'd like to share this with anyone, I would be more than grateful if you would do that so that this podcast can spread and grow. And I believe that there are people out there like myself who would have loved to have heard this information back then, where I was stuck, not moving, living in pain, level 6 every day, not going to the gym, not going to yoga, not playing tennis, not playing with my kids on a trampoline. And then now all of that is gone. So whether you're dealing with pain or burnout or just avoiding certain things in your life, just know that there's an answer, and it is linked to you going inside yourself and exploring around. So, real freedom begins with when you start to really connect with your truth and start to shift your identity. And I truly believe that. So, if you're also looking for deeper work, identity, nervous system work, regulation with that, any type of, subconscious repatterning, I am your girl. This is exactly what I do. I work with you one-on-one, and I'm going to be creating different containers for that, maybe a retreat around that. So come find me again, Instagram, I am .theannalove, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Tattooed Truth podcast. If this episode lit something up in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, leave a review, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a truth bomb. If you're craving deeper support, guided healing, or a space to reclaim your voice and power, check the show notes for ways to work with me. Remember, your truth is not too loud, too bold, or too much. It's exactly what this world needs. Keep showing up, stay wild, stay true. I'll see you next time.